King Kong in the trunk.
I'm back. Rhodes Rants on Star Wars. If you like this video, like and subscribe and join the Rhodes Squadron. I got some details on this whole Benioff and Weiss jetting deal out of Star Wars. And it looks like Lucasfilm may have been the ones to pull the plug. This is from a Patreon-only episode of The Storm, which is a podcast by a Vanity Fair reporter that involves Game of Thrones. Last year, it was reported that Benioff and D.B. Weiss, the showrunners of Game of Thrones, had signed on for a trilogy of Star Wars films. Information regarding their involvement in the projects which they were set to write and produce had been minimal since the announcement. This week, it was revealed the two were no longer involved. Quote, "There were only so many hours in the day. We felt like we could not do justice to both Star Wars and Netflix." In a Patreon-only episode of the Storm podcast, Vanity Fair's Joanna Robinson said she heard from sources that the duo were let go months ago, shortly after the decisive Game of Thrones series finale aired, just before their Netflix deal, contrary to the statement. Quote, "I heard from Disney folks that they were wondering, do you think this backlash is flash in the pan or here to stay?" Robinson revealed, referring to the internet outrage at Benioff and Weiss Game of Thrones finale. The, quote, "toxicity around the Game of Thrones finale combined with anger around Star Wars The Last Jedi was cited as possible reason for their departure, as Disney allegedly wanted to avoid upsetting even more fans." Quote, "Weiss and Benioff were removed from the franchise over the summer before they made their deal with Netflix. Quote, my understanding, this is a soft firing and that they did not announce it in order for Weiss and Benioff to shop their services around. The company quietly removed them from Star Wars in May in order to allow them to shop their talents around, eventually landing with a Netflix deal. The timing of it's very suspicious," she said. Robinson also suggested Benioff and Weiss's recent comments about removing some fantasy elements from Game of Thrones in order to appeal to more than just hardcore fans sped up Disney's announcement. Okay. So what do we think about this, Rhodes Squadron? Disney pulled the rug out from underneath Benioff and Weiss, according to this Vanity Fair reporter who is in on all the dealings for Game of Thrones, and that Lucasfilm did in fact have an issue with the way the Game of Thrones finale turned out, which I think is smart when you consider the backlash from The Last Jedi. Essentially, they were looking at having the three most volatile entities in current pop culture status, Rian Johnson, Benioff, and Weiss, involved with Lucasfilm. Now, if anything tells you right there, the caveat to this is this tells you right here, if they did a soft firing of Benioff and Weiss, what do you think's happened with Rian Johnson? Because look, Benioff and Weiss had 100 times more clout going into Star Wars than Rian Johnson did. The Game of Thrones writers versus a hack like Rian Johnson. And look, I understand Game of Thrones Season 8 was a shitty mess. But go look at Benioff and Weiss's accolades and then look at Rian Johnson's. And you're probably like, Rhodes, why are you bringing up Rian Johnson? Because in my opinion, the two are related. Think about that a minute. Also, it is my understanding that Kevin Feige is at the very least, involved with Star Wars on a minimum of a consulting role in order to straighten out the franchise. There's no word for sure that he's taking over for KK, but he is involved in the decision making, and by the way, he is reporting to Bob Iger and not to Kathleen Kennedy. So Kathleen's been curved around at this point. What does that tell you? Peace 'em out. Till next time.